Okay? How are we doing? All right? Am I on? Yeah. Great. Okay, so whilst we're sort of setting up and getting going, I need two guys, preferably, who are volunteering up on stage to be tied together. You literally are going to be tied together. Okay. These two? Sorry. You guys can do this thing. All right, come on, guys. Up on stage. Going to do a little bit of a recap on what we did yesterday, but this is going to act as a bit of a visual illustration. So I need you to put your hands out like this. No, just, yeah.
Oh, sorry.
That's fine.
Sorry.
I'm going to tie him together.
Don't be scared to get that tight. Oh, you can still do stuff.
You can still do stuff. Right.
Oh, nice.
All right, you can just stand there for a second.
My hand came from out.
Okay, so I'm just going to leave them there for a minute, and we'll get to them in a second. But you retying the knots?
Yeah, I wasn't tight enough.
Okay.
I really want to feel like I can't escape.
Okay.
For the
For the visual.
Yes.
Have you done this before?
Nope.
Okay, good. Okay. Before I ask you to do anything, I'm just going to do a bit of a recap. Yesterday we started by looking at a few things about Scripture that we can, how we approach it, how we trust it, that it's God's word, but it's been written through human beings, and that it has a context. It has.
Sorry.
It's all right. Yeah, you just stay there. It has a context. Do you remember? It's written to a people in a place at a time. We had to think through that. And we started by saying that actually there are themes in Scripture. I want to give you the whole overview of Scripture in these few lectures. I want to give you the idea that... okay. You really are tying yourself together.
Sorry.
But we started by saying that there's an overarching storyline to the Bible, and then there are themes that go through. And we're going to look at one of those themes about being the royal priesthood, being God's image bearers. We went back to the beginning of the Bible, do you remember? And we said that God created everything, and it was good. He created a place that was good, and that he made a people, Adam and Eve, men and women who were image bearers. Do you remember that really strong concept that we are bearing God's image? And we said that was like the word icon or idol. It's exactly the same word. We are images of God, and we are to image God to the world around us. And we said that God put us into a garden. It was a good place. It was a beautiful place. It had things for us to enjoy, things to eat. But he said there's one part that you can't have, the knowledge of good and bad. And we decided, after a conversation with the snake, if you remember, Eve had a conversation with the snake. Incidentally, where was the guy in that conversation? Did you think about that? So the snake's having a conversation with Eve. Where was Adam? Right beside her. So, wait a second. I'll get to you in a second. So, Adam was right beside her. Did he jump in and say in the conversation, no, God said, did Adam say anything? Adam failed to speak God's word to Eve. Eve failed to speak God's word to Adam about what they were talking about. And because of that deceit, that desire, are you still tying yourself together?
No. Yes, sorry. I'm sorry. We can stop. Just wanted to go realistic.
You see, this is the visual illustration. When you don't listen to the instructions, you get yourself tied in knots. That's basically what this is about. because they got themselves tied up. So Adam and Eve.
We're focusing.
No. This is the illustration. They through not obeying what God told them to obey, and by listening to the snake and by taking of the fruit, we saw that they got themselves in the right mess, and they got themselves locked into sin in a way that they just stop fiddling with that that they couldn't get out of. And that's like this. They're tied together, they're locked together in a way that they can't actually free themselves from it. Can you? Without untying the knot, without breaking the cord, can you unravel yourself from this mess that you've got yourself in? Yeah. Well, just, you see, this is the visual illustration that I'm trying to put across. That sin ties us in a knot. There is a way out. There is a way out of this. But it's not this.
So wait, we're here. It's pretty simple.
It's pretty simple. It is pretty simple.
No. I've seen this.
You've seen it.
Wait, I go back underneath you.
They're two connected. Yeah.
What?
So,
What is that?
listen to some
Rings.
advice.
Wait.
Connected rings, so they can't get apart.
Well, there is a way.
There's a way. There's a will, there's a way.
You can't break it. You can't untie the knots.
Oh, I have an idea. I don't know what's going on. But we just have to get our arms.
But we are enjoying watching them try to untie themselves, aren't we?
I want to do this really bad. So we have to get arm. I have to get your arm. Wait. I have to go like this. Oh, I have an idea.
How long are we going to give them?
The entire class period.
The entire class period. No, I want to teach you some other things.
We're here.
Wait, well.
Okay, go put my legs. Go put my legs. I go down with my legs.
This could end up really messy.
Oh! I thought we had it. Wait. No, I actually think I have an idea. So, yeah. Okay. I have to.
I don't think there's anything that we
Okay. No. So now, then you step through. These? Yes. And so then. This is so bad. Do you know how to do it?
Do I know how to do it? Yeah, I do know how to do it. Do you want me to show you?
Yeah. No, wait. Give me a hint.
Give you a hint? No, I'm not giving you any hint. This is a visual illustration of the mess that we get ourselves into in sin
I think I'll grab yours.
when we get ourselves tied in a knot that we can't undo.
Okay. I've seen this. Same.
Yeah, well, I'm not going to shed blood on stage. Don't worry about that.
We're somewhere. We're somewhere. Okay.
It's nice. It's yeah. So it's a yeah.
Do I crawl around your arm?
Okay, this is the last chance I'm going to give you.
Go down. Oh! We're getting somewhere. Okay. Oh, we're not. Wait. No. Hold on. It's gotta. Here's the
All right. I think.
Is that genuinely keep on thinking we are making progress? Okay.
All right.
Help us. Would you please?
There is a way. What you have to do.
Oh. See,
Oh.
I remember now.
Hold on. I think I've got this.
Wait.
Actually.
We stuck forever.
No, I found it even worse. You see. Hold on. No, we've done it wrong.
Okay.
We've done it wrong.
My apologies.
Illustrations are only as good as they when they work, aren't they?
Yeah. Okay. Okay. This is fun, though. We're having a good time, aren't we?
Let's take that back. Pull
Okay.
that back.
Voila.
No,
Nope.
no,
Well,
no,
that's
no.
one. That's one less. That's one less than it was.
It is. You getting the idea?
Yeah.
Where's your...
This is good. Sorry we were messing around earlier. You go through there.
Oh, pull.
Boom. Nice. Wait. Oh, sorry.
Oh, that's one more.
You just get on with it. There is, so if you put the loop through the loop... no.
Holy cow.
Yeah, you've really...
Wait.
No, don't do that. Don't do that. I'm just going to do this, and then I'm going to show you how...
I apologize.
No, I don't want you to do that. Right, tie that down.
Perfect. Okay. There we go.
Right, just show them that you tied together again.
Okay. They're tied together again.
All right, now just hold it there.
There.
I think this is how it...
Oh! Thank you for that.
That was very painful.
That was good. Thanks, guys.
Okay, that took way longer than I thought it would. But you get the illustration that actually you get tied in knots.
Throw the rope back?
Yeah, well, I'll take the rope back.
No, you're gonna be tied together.
Yeah, you have to take this together. You have to stay on the same bed together.
So what I was trying to illustrate was that by the end of Genesis 11, they got themselves really tied in knots. They've gone downhill, and we looked at the spread of that sin and death that God said would happen if they ate of the fruit of the tree of the knowledge of good and evil, and that's what we saw happening yesterday. Let me just get... Okay, so we saw by the end of Genesis 11, with the Tower of Babel, things had gone really downhill. And death had spread, and the world was in a mess. Human pride saying, no, we can do it our way. What do? They build a tower, the Tower of Babel, and this was a symbol of human beings doing it our way, knowledge of good and evil, my way, not God's way. And God comes down and he scatters them over the face of the earth. So by the end of Genesis 11, we've got a situation where people aren't obeying God, they're scattered across the world. God's kingdom, which is God's place with God's people who are image bearers, with God's blessing, has just been decimated. It's been scattered across the world. And Genesis 11 is the picture of that in the Tower of Babel. So what does God do about it? Well, he picks one man and one woman again. And there's a theme there, isn't there? One man and one woman. He picks Abram and he picks Sarah. And through Abram and Sarah, he is going to restore that kingdom. He's going to bring that kingdom about again. A people in a place under God's blessing. But how's it going to happen? The rest of the story of Genesis is it's a family tree. It's a timeline. And you can see it. I put it up here. Adam and Eve had 3 children. There was Cain and Abel. So in Genesis 4, you see that Cain kills his brother. Cain has another son called Lamech. And Lamech, you can read about in Genesis 4, he's not a good guy. He's an evil guy, goes around killing people, and he enjoys that murdering. So death spreads on from there. But to replace Abel, Adam and Eve have another son called Seth. And we follow through in Genesis 5 that big storyline of people who lived in the line of Seth, but they died. And Enoch was one who didn't die. And in that line, we get to Noah. And God looks at the world under Noah, and he is grieved, it says. He's saddened by what he sees. He sees evil all the time, death and destruction all the time. So he reverses creation. In the story of Noah, the floodwaters above and the floodwaters underneath come back together, and there's this giant flood. It's literally the reversal of the creation narrative. And he wipes out the earth, but there is an ark. And in the ark, God rescues Noah and his family and the animals. And he has 3 sons, Ham, Japheth, and Shem. Ham goes on to be the father of the Canaanites. Shem goes on to eventually father Abraham, or Abram, and it's there we're going to pick the story up. So God has chosen one man. And do you remember what we looked at yesterday? When God chose Abram, what did God tell Abram to do? Can you remember? There were 3 things. God, leave the land that you're in. Do you know where they were at that point? So God had called Abram's father to leave his land, which was over in sort of Babylon, and come over to the promised land. But they hadn't actually reached the promised land. They were north of the promised land in what's now sort of Damascus and Lebanon. But they worshipped the sun god in that area. And that's where Abram's father settled, in a place where they were worshipping the sun god. And God says to Abram, leave that place and go to the place I'll take you. That's the first thing. So God says, I'm going to take you to a place. And what did he say? What was the second promise he gave him? Remember? Yeah? I'll make a great nation out of you. You'll be a great people, Abram. And the third thing, yeah? Well, that will come from the great nation will come from the son that he'll have. But there's a third thing that God promised Abram when he left, yeah?
It was, I will bless those who bless you and curse those who...
I'll bless you. Yeah, I'm going to bless you. And those that bless you, I'll bless. And those that curse you, I'll curse. So 3 big promises. A place, a people, and a blessing. Exactly the same as you get in the Garden of Eden. God makes a place. He puts a people in it. And he blesses them. And God is going to restore that kingdom through Abram. A people, a place, and a blessing. And do you remember the first person that we kind of meet that starts that story going is this strange guy called Melchizedek. And after a war, Melchizedek, who's the king of Salem, peace, comes out and meets Abram. And he's a priest. He's a priest of God Most High. And he comes out with bread and wine, and he blesses Abram, and in turn Abram gives him a tithe and blesses him. And so we see God's promise starting to happen, that those that bless you, I will bless. So Melchizedek gets blessed by God. But there is a problem. How is Abram going to become a great nation? Because he doesn't have a son. He's in his 90s. Sarah's in her 90s. She hasn't had any children. And that's where the storyline picks up. Now, I know you know where this is going, but just listen to the story a bit, because this is important. Because they can't see a way through it, just like these guys here. They couldn't see a way out of untying themselves. They couldn't actually see the problem. And here's the story and how it starts in Genesis 15. And this is... We're just going to camp out here for a few minutes in Genesis 15. God speaking. Do not be afraid, Abram. I'm your shield and your very great reward. But Abram said, Sovereign Lord, what can you give me since I remain childless? And the one who will inherit my estate is going to be one of my servants, Eliezer of Damascus, or a distant relative. So he didn't have an heir. So he said, well, what another one of the family is going to be my heir? Abram said, you've given me no children, so a servant in my household will be my heir. Then the word of the Lord came to him and said, this man will not be your heir, but a son who is your own flesh and blood will be your heir. And he took him outside and said, look up at the sky and count the stars, if indeed you can count them. Then he said, so shall your offspring be. And Abram believed the Lord, and he credited it to him as righteousness. And that verse is the verse that Paul picks up in Romans chapter 4 about faith. That it's actually through faith that Abram believed. It wasn't by what he did, it was believing God. So that's an important verse. So what has God promised Abram? This is obvious. What's God's promised Abram? A son. A son. But he's in his 90s. But Abram believed him. And he takes Abram outside and says, this is going to be a great nation. You're going to be a great, great nation. And God makes a covenant with Abram at this point. He shows him through a covenant that he's actually going to do what he promised. That's what a covenant is. So a covenant is a kind of contract, but it's even deeper than a contract. And he binds this contract together in a very powerful way, and I'm going to show you what that is in a moment. Give me some examples of a covenant. Marriage. Who said that? Marriage. Marriage is the best example of a covenant that we've got. So what I want you to do, this is just a bit of fun, but just to get you thinking, and I want you to think about the words really, really, really carefully. My wife Jo and I have been married 36 years. We want to renew our marriage covenant. We want to say some covenantal vows to each other, okay? I want you to write them for us. So I want you to think, Jo and I standing in front of each other, and we're going to make a covenant to each other. We're going to renew our covenantal vows like marriage vows. I'm going to say to her, and we'll just do it from my side, this is my covenant with you. I will, and I want you to write the covenantal vows. Just 5 minutes, maybe work in pairs on this, or threes. Write me some vows, and then I'm going to ask for 1 or 2 volunteers to give me them, and I will read them out, and let's see how we get on, all right? Write some covenantal vows. They've got to be binding. They've got to be deep as you can make them, as serious as you can make them. I don't want the kind of Hollywood vows. Oh, I love you so, love you, that sort of thing. I want what is going to bind us together for another 36 years? What are the promises I've got to make to do that? Go for it. 5 minutes. Write some covenantal vows for me. So I, Steve, take you, Jo, to be my wife, and then I read out what you're going to say.
Yes.
I'm going to read some of these out, so get writing.
Ours won, guys.
You got some serious ones?
Yeah,
They need to be serious.
they're very serious.
It doesn't sound like it to me.
Think of it like this. It's kind of like the when you had Tanner and Towson come up there, and it's kind of like that.
Okay.
Okay.
That sounds good. So can I read yours out in a minute?
If you would like to.
Yeah. Okay.
Whoa! He's getting the tag pointed out. Should we add everything?
Yeah, we gotta add that for this.
I'm going to give you one more minute, and then that's not very long to write some really serious vows.
No.
And the priest was like, "You wrote that?" He goes, "No." And she like wrote this like long like quote message. Oh, I was walking out.
I would say
Let's say I vow to.
Okay. So, have we got some that are willing for me to read them out? Well, I'll read it to. Okay. Well, I need someone to step in and be Joe. Would you be Joe?
Do you want me to?
Yeah, please. So, so she's going to be Joe for this. She's my wife. So I'm going to call you Joe. Yeah, nice bunch of flowers. Yeah, you can do that. So, okay. Serious moment. I take a lot of weddings, and I actually say to people at this moment, this is the most serious bit of the ceremony. But I know you'll enjoy this. So, okay. So, I, Steve, take you, Joe, to be my wife. I vow to lead with humility, respect, and love you unconditionally, to protect and to guide you and our family. I promise to reflect Christ in everything I do and to forgive and move on. I vow to fight for you until death do we part. Brilliant. Well done, well done. Yeah. Now, those were really good. Those were really good because they were deep, they were committed, they were what I would do for her. We've got another example that I can read out. Anyone willing for? Yeah? Okay. Well, I'll take a different Joe this time. Can I have another Joe who's willing to be my wife? Anyone willing to kind of step up and be my wife? Thank you. You need a bunch of flowers, apparently. Okay. Okay. Serious bit. You can come a bit closer. We're getting married after all. So, I, Steve, take you, Joe, to be my wife. I promise that I will stand faithfully by your side through the mountains and valleys. I vow to take care for you and love you through sickness and through health. I promise to never give up on this covenant as long as I draw breath. There we are. Oh, great. They're really good. Anyone got anything different that we might reflect on? Okay, just 5 seconds. Finish it off, and we'll do one more. That's how you get married. Now, whilst we're going to do one more, if you've got Genesis 15 open, whilst we're just waiting for this, just read the last part of the chapter from verse 7 or 8 onwards, and see how Abram, God set up a covenant with Abram. Have we got our final set? Come on, bring it up. You can be my Joe as well.
I only did yours, like coming from you to Joe.
Yeah, that's perfect. Come on up.
When are you redoing your vows?
Well, no, this is just an illustration. We will do probably on our 40th, I think, our 40th wedding. So 4 more years away. So.
Your time to burn. I didn't read it.
Oh, wow. All right, let's just listen to this. To your flowers. Okay. Can you be closer? Actually, when I do weddings, you hold hands. I'm not going to do that with you, but you hold hands because you are holding on to that person and saying, "This is a promise I'm going to make to you for life." So, I, Steve, promise to comfort you when you are in distress. Whenever you're having a bad day or are in a stressful, overwhelming situation, I promise to stop whatever I'm doing and cry with you and help you whichever way I can. I will always be on your side whenever someone is against you. I promise to love you forever, even if we have a bad argument. I will always respect you, take you seriously, and do whatever it takes to make things right. Because whenever we are apart, emotionally and physically, I'm in a state of unbearable sadness. I'm thankful to God to have you in my life, and I'm so excited to serve Jesus with you as we get closer to him. Wow, those are brilliant, aren't they? Thank you. Those are great. Yeah, guys, you'll have to send me these because they're really good. Right. Just to give you the words that we use in a marriage covenant. They're very simple, like the ones you've done. This is what we say, and you'll be familiar with these probably, but this is what we say in our church. Just look at it. To have and to hold from this day forward. So you're marking a moment in time. A moment in time. This covenant is being made now. For better, for worse, for richer, for poorer, in sickness and in health. And that's marking, I'm going to stand by you through the ups and downs, the thick and thin, no matter what happens to you next or what happens to me next, in sickness and in health. To love and to cherish. What does cherish mean? It's an unusual word. Cherish. If you cherish something, you hold it really, really close to you. Till death us do part, according to God's holy law, and in the presence of God, I make this vow. So it's doing what you guys have done in your vows, but it's saying, this is a promise before God, and I will not break it until I die. Now, God sets up a covenant with Abram, with the promise that he's made, that you will be a great nation, I'll give you a great place, and I'll bless you. It's like a marriage covenant. God's saying, I will do this with you and for you. And here is how we're going to seal that covenant. What does God do? Has anyone read on ahead? How does God do the covenant? Okay, let's look at it together. All right, this is going to be slightly unusual. I wouldn't recommend you do this on your wedding day. So the Lord said to Abram, bring me a heifer, bring me a cow. Bring me a goat and a ram, each 3 years old, along with a dove and a young pigeon. Okay, this is the covenant. You're going to bring a load of animals. A cow, a goat, a ram, a dove and a young pigeon. Okay? That's the start of the covenant. What are you going to do? Abram brought all these to him and he cut them in half. I just want you to picture this, okay? He slices the animals in half, so it's going to be messy. There's going to be blood everywhere. And he arranges them in a row, opposite each other. So there's half a cow here, half a cow here. There's half a sheep here. There's half a sheep here. There's blood everywhere. And so it goes. There's halves of animals. And the bird he didn't cut in half because it's too small. And the birds of prey come down on the carcasses, but Abram drives them away. Now that is a weird way to do a covenant, isn't it? What do you think is... Why is it being done this way? What's being shown? There's no words used, so what's being shown? Yeah?
I think a lot of time when people make covenants like that, because I think it wasn't just, anyway, it was like saying, let me be like these animals if I break the covenant.
Absolutely. And that's the symbolism. So these animals had died, they'd been cut in half and laid side by side. But there was a corridor between the two. And when you made a covenant in those days, say, for example, two kings were making a covenant that they would agree on. Both the kings would agree on the words of the covenant and then they would walk between the dead animals. And that's how they made the covenant. And basically what they were saying is just like you said, if I break my side of this covenant, what has happened to these animals should happen to me. I should die if I break this covenant. So that's a serious, serious covenant. Imagine doing that on your wedding day. Imagine. That's how serious it is. Now, you need to listen to this bit carefully because this bit's really important. That's the covenant that God makes with Abram. But at the end of the story, he falls into a deep sleep. And what appears is this, when the sun has set and darkness had fallen, a smoking firepot and a blazing torch appeared, and they passed between the pieces of the animals. And on that day, the Lord made a covenant with Abram. So, what's gone on? In the sleep, Abram sees a smoking stack, a flame appear and go between the dead animals. And it says that God made a covenant with Abram. So what's happened? Anyone get an idea of what's gone on there? Any thoughts? Yeah, way at the back. It is the promise of a promised land. This is where God's going to take him. But what's with the smoking stack and the... Okay, yeah?
Is it kind of like the firstborn offering?
That's a really good thought. And it could be. But where else? Yeah? So let me just put this into your minds. Where else do you hear of a column of smoke and a pillar of fire? It's what appears later in the story when God is leading the people of Israel out of slavery. He leads them by day with a column of smoke and by night with a column of fire. And here's Here's the first kind of picture of that. The smoke and the fire. It's God coming and walking between the pieces of the dead animals. God is making the covenant with Abram, and that's the symbol, that's the picture of it. Now, what is missing in this? Does Abram go between the pieces? It doesn't seem so. It doesn't look as though Abram actually went through them. It's just the smoking stack and the fire. Now, why might that be? Why didn't Abram go? Why didn't God, yeah.
Is it like Abraham didn't have to do anything but be happy, believe that be part of the covenant?
So yeah, I think it's because God knew that Abram would not keep his side of the covenant. And he knew that he'd break the covenant. And if he did go between, he would end up being destroyed. But God goes between it for both of them, so that when Abram breaks his covenant, it's God who takes the punishment. Now I'm projecting way forwards with this. But do you see? Can you link up the dots? You know it's all about Jesus. What does Jesus do? He takes the punishment on the cross for our sin. When we break the covenant, we should be destroyed. And instead, Jesus is destroyed for us so that the price is paid. And this is just a little glimpse of that. Can you see that? You wouldn't know this until you get to the end of the story, but there's just a little glimpse of what God is promising later on. Now, okay, so that's serious, that's big, that's important. So how is it going to happen? How is this promise going to happen? And that takes us to the next part of the story. How is this offspring from Abram going to happen? If he's going to have a son, his wife Sarah can't have children. So anyone know what they do? You do know. Go on.
Sarah tells Abram to go sleep with my servant. Yeah, Abraham's like, okay, I'll do that.
Yeah. So do you remember her name?
Hagar.
Hagar. So Sarah can't have children. Hagar is their maidservant. She can have children. So Sarah says, okay, you go sleep with her. She'll have your baby. And then we've got our heir. Do you think that was a good idea? Do you think that's what God intended? That must have been something that they did in those days, but it wasn't what God intended. Now, this is a very powerful story. They don't actually listen to what God says and trust him completely. And it ends up hurting people. I've got a friend of mine who is a filmmaker, and he's a Christian filmmaker, and he has a competition every year where he says to filmmakers, take a story of the Bible and turn it into a film, a short film, any story of the Bible, and turn it into a short film. And one year, one person took this story of Hagar and Sarah and Abram and turned it into a little film. I can't show it you all because it's like 20 minutes long. We haven't got time to watch it. I've got it if you want to watch it sometime. But I can show you what's called the pitch, where she pitches the idea to my friend and his team. And she takes this story, and she said, if I was to make this into a film, and it's her who's actually talking on the pitch, and she gets her story accepted. And this is her pitching for her film to be made. Now, just before I show it to you, it's only 2 minutes long, just before I show it to you, how would you do it? If you were to take that story of Hagar, Sarah, and Abram and try and turn it into a little film, how would you go about doing it? Think about it. This is how she did it. So just watch this. I hope you can hear it. Okay. Don't you love the whirling circle of death? Come on. Come on. Ah. I don't.
No home, no family, no country. Her life is in their hands. Their child is in hers. Hagar is a young Syrian woman who has lost everything in the war. She survived a dangerous journey to England, only to be refused asylum. Her case is being handled by Sarah, a fast-rising Home Office official. Sarah is married to Abraham, a wealthy hedge fund manager. Their life is seemingly perfect, but they desperately want a child. They cannot conceive, and even IVF has failed. Sarah thinks that Abraham blames her, and that adoption or surrogacy would be seen as a failure. Hagar's papers land on Sarah's desk for deportation. Sarah offers Hagar a deal. She will give her asylum and employ her as a live-in housekeeper if Hagar will be a secret surrogate for Abraham's child. Meanwhile, Sarah will fake a pregnancy to the outside world. Hagar agrees, desperate to avoid deportation. But the pregnancy is tough. She soon resents the child she's carrying. And Sarah becomes jealous of Abraham's bond with Hagar. When Sarah unexpectedly becomes pregnant, she calls off the deal and forces Hagar out of the house. Destitute, pregnant, and alone, Hagar makes a decision. She will take care of her rejected child and fight for both their futures.
There we go. That's how she pitched her story to the filmmakers, and they made the film out of it. So if you want to watch it, I can show it you later. But it's the story of Hagar and Sarah put into a modern context, set in the UK, trying to get the drama of what was going on and just the power of the emotions involved. They had to have a child. How were they going to do it? A surrogate child through Hagar. But then Sarah gets pregnant, and Hagar is sent off on her own. So they abuse Hagar to try and make that promise happen. And yet God is faithful to his promise, and Sarah does get pregnant in her 90s, and she gives birth to Isaac. But Hagar, does anyone know Hagar's son? What's his name? Ishmael. They get sent off into the desert, and they cry out. She believes she's just going to die. She leaves Ishmael under a tree and goes off, and she cries out, and God hears her and actually comes to her aid. And Ishmael goes on to be the father of a great nation, actually. Anyone know what that nation is?
Muslims, right?
It's the Arab nation, yeah. It's the Arab nation. Comes from the line of Ishmael. When the Muslims look back at that story of Abraham, they see Ishmael as their father. And of course, well, I don't want to read too much into it, but Muslims and Jews have been enemies for a very, very long time. And their storyline traces all the way back to that. Don't read too much into that, but it's interesting. Now, so it's not a good fit. It's not the way God intended it to be. God planned to give Sarah a child, and Isaac is born. But this creates a problem. Has Abram obeyed the covenant?
No.
He hasn't. He hasn't. So what should the consequences of disobeying the covenant be?
It should be split in half.
It should be split in half. So, here's what God does. In Genesis 22, you start to read this story. This is a famous story, but it's an important story. Sometime later, what does God do? What does that say God did? Tested him. What is God doing by testing him? What is a test? Trying to see if he's still faithful. So God sets up a situation to see if Abraham, who has not obeyed God in the last moment, this time will he obey God. And what is the test? It is, take your son, your only son whom you love. Now that's a phrase. That is a phrase that will appear later. It appears about Israel later on in the book of Exodus. We'll hear that. But it's, how does God the Father describe Jesus when he's baptized as him? This is my son whom I love. Yeah? It's the same phrase coming through. And he says, take your son Isaac and go to the region of Moriah. Sacrifice him there as a burnt offering on a mountain I will show you. Now, which mountain is it? Sorry? One they'll show him. Where is it? Moriah. Isn't that where Gandalf goes or something like that? I'm sure it's Moria. Moria, it is Moria. I think that's where Tolkien got the idea from, actually. But anyway, go to Moriah. Now, just to show you how significant this is, would somebody with a loud voice just read out 2 Chronicles chapter 3, verse 1? Anyone? 2 Chronicles 3, verse 1?
But the angel of the Lord called out to him and Abraham.
No.
Oh, sorry.
No, you need to look up 2 Chronicles 3, verse 1. Yep, thank you. Big loud voice.
And Solomon began to build the house of the Lord in Jerusalem on Mount Moriah, where the Lord had appeared to David his father at the place that David had appointed, on the threshing floor of Ornan the Jebusite.
That'll do. So, who are we talking about? Solomon. Centuries and centuries and centuries later, Solomon is building what? A temple. Where? Mount Moriah. So on the same mountain, yeah? Same mountain that Abraham is told to take his son Isaac and sacrifice him, they're going to build a temple. Solomon's temple. What goes on inside the temple? Sacrifices. And what does that sacrifice do? It atones. It pays the price for our sin. And here, yeah, go on.
Isn't it the same hill where Jesus also?
It is also the same hill where Jesus is died. Yes, it's Zion. Well, it's not where he dies, because he dies on Golgotha, which is outside, but it's on a hill. But it is where the Temple Mount is. Do you remember? Eden is a hill. It's a mountain. It's where God dwells. So God dwells in Eden. God dwells in the mountain. But humans have been cast out. They're not allowed to come back. But in order for humans to meet God on a mountain, a sacrifice has to be made. And that is what you're getting here in this story. So God's taking Abram. Abram has broken the covenant by trying to do things the way he thought, by having a child through Hagar. And so he takes his son, his only son, and I've cut that bit out of the story because he's just about to sacrifice him, and God steps in and says, the angel of the Lord called out to him from heaven, Abram, Abram, here I am, he replied, don't lay a hand on the boy, do not do anything to him. Now that I know that you fear God because you've not withheld from me your son, your only son. Well, it wasn't his only son, was it? because he had another son, Ishmael. But this is the son of the promise. And he's saying, you're the son that you love. You're only son of the promise. You haven't withheld him. That test that I put before you, I can see that you've been faithful and true to it. And because you've not withheld from me your son, your only son, Abraham looked up, and there in the thicket was a ram caught by its horns. And so Abraham takes the ram, he sacrifices it as a burnt offering instead of his son. And so Abraham called the place, the Lord will provide, Jehovah Jireh. And to this day it said, on the mountain of the Lord it will be provided. So mountain is important. God provides a sacrifice on a mountain, and it pays the price for Abraham's sin. What is Abram doing when he's going to sacrifice his son? What part is he playing? What sort of role is he playing? Who sacrifices things on mountains? Priests. Abraham is being a priest. He's being called to sacrifice, to make atonement, to make things right. And so we're still following that storyline of a kingdom of priests. And God is fulfilling his promise. He's going to make a kingdom, a people in a place, and be a blessing. Okay, we'll take 10 minutes and then we're going to pick up a different storyline a little bit later. All right? Thanks, guys.